The Amish are well known for their humble lifestyle, strong religion, and unyielding dedication to tradition. You probably envision horse-drawn carriages, handcrafted quilts, and tranquil countryside views, right? But what if I told you there's more to their story, something that occasionally puts them in conflict with modern laws? Let's discuss something unexpected: the Amish and firearms. It may seem odd, especially because these societies are frequently portrayed as pacifist, but wait, I guarantee it's not what you think. Amish homes do not have tactical gear or high tech gun safes. A well used hunting rifle is more likely to be found stashed up in the corner of a modest home. And here's the twist: it frequently lacks the paperwork required by current law. You're undoubtedly wondering, why does a community known for peace and simplicity need firearms? For the Amish, a rifle is more than just a weapon. It is a tool. When your everyday existence revolves around guarding livestock or hunting to put food on the table, a rifle becomes just as important as a hammer or plow, just with a little more punch, and they aren't cheap guns either. The Amish tend to invest on high quality firearms that last generations. They treat them with the same regard and care as their other prized things, but this is where things become complicated. And yes, technically unlawful. Many Amish gun owners do not bother with registration. To them, it's not about rebellion, it's about clinging to their old habits. Consider following a family recipe rather than reading the instructions on the box. What's the difference? This recipe could get them into legal trouble. In 2019, a police investigation in rural Ohio shed light on how widespread this is. Authorities discovered that many Amish families were keeping unregistered guns, primarily for hunting. It's like discovering that your calm neighbor, who always mows his grass and waves hello, has been driving without a license for years. Wrong? Technically, sure. Dangerous? Not really. This approach to gun ownership echoes the Amish attitude towards government: keep it at arm's length. They regard registration as superfluous paperwork. Instead, they quietly store their firearms, treating them with respect while keeping them out of sight. Consider it a secret family treasure, but this one may have legal ramifications, and the repercussions are not insignificant. Being found with an unlicensed firearm might result in significant penalties or possibly criminal charges. However, many Amish families believe the risk is worthwhile. Their style of life centers on self-sufficiency and tradition. If great-grandpa didn't require documentation for his weapon, why should they? This all highlights an intriguing conflict: modern laws versus old practices. While the rest of us are busy filling out forms and waiting for background checks, the Amish rely on trust and time-tested practices. Sure, their decisions may not comply with modern rules, but they provide an intriguing peek into a society attempting to cling on to its origins in an ever-changing world. It may not be exactly legal, but it serves as a compelling reminder that the letter of the law cannot always convey the complexities of various ways of living. What about firearms? They're only one element of the puzzle. Speaking of keeping the government at arm's length, consider another area where the Amish follow their own rules: health and medicine. Let's just say their medicine closets differ greatly from yours. The FDA would undoubtedly have a field day. When you think of medicine, you generally envision white-coated doctors, clean hospitals, and small orange prescription bottles. However, in Amish land, healthcare takes on a whole other vibe. Consider solutions that are equally fascinating, traditional, and, depending on your point of view, problematic. Instead of going to the pharmacy, many Amish families gather herbs from their gardens, make potent drinks, and rely on healing techniques straight from Grandma's secret recipe book. Consider this. You come sick with a severe cold. The majority of us would take a bottle of Dayquil and call it a day. But what about Amish households? They might prepare a recipe passed down through generations that includes garlic, honey, and a pinch of who knows what. And you know what? Sometimes these cures work, even if the FDA would roll their eyes so hard they'd need to take their medicine. It's like having a small pharmaceutical firm in your backyard, except instead of scientists in lab coats, it's Grandma with her garden shears and a well-worn recipe book. This is where things get tricky and controversial. Some Amish towns employ their own healthcare practitioners, although these individuals are not certified doctors or nurses. They are more like traditional healers, learning their trade via apprenticeship and experience. Sure, they may be familiar with every medical plant within a 10-mile radius, but what about legality? They are technically practicing medicine without a license, and it does not end there. When these cures are offered outside of the community, for example, at markets with promises of treating everything from the flu to a broken heart, they are treading a legal fine line. Federal regulations are extremely clear. If you make health claims regarding experimental remedies, you must obtain FDA approval. Grandma's miracle cough treatment may work wonders, but selling it at the local market could get you in hot water faster than you can make a cup of chamomile tea. Then there's the perennially contentious vaccination question. Many Amish villages have historically declined immunization initiatives claiming religious convictions. However, when disease outbreaks occur, this decision can cause significant tension with public health experts. It's as if two worlds collided, one powered by modern medical research, the other by centuries-old customs and natural cures. Perhaps the most surprising feature of Amish healthcare is their response to emergencies. Some families prefer to manage serious medical emergencies in their community rather than going to the hospital. It's not because they're completely opposed to contemporary medicine. It's about independence and belief. However, when things go wrong, particularly when children are involved, this decision can have devastating effects and legal ramifications. What's remarkable is how the Amish deal with these complications. They don't fully oppose contemporary medicine. In truth, many people will seek expert help for major injuries or diseases. However, their initial reaction is to rely on their own methods, which have served them well for decades. Think of it as a backup generator. Most folks only use one when the electricity goes off. What about the Amish, though? The backup is their primary source of electricity, and they only use the grid when absolutely required. We rarely endorse things on this channel, but we are making an exception for a very particular purpose. There's a book by Claude Davis, a seasoned prepper, that outlines 126 superfoods and preservation techniques utilized throughout crisis times like the Great Depression and what we hot. Information you won't find anywhere else. Why do we promote it? Because we feel that this is our generation's final opportunity to preserve these techniques and pass them down to our children and grandkids. It would be a tragedy to lose this knowledge, which includes highly nutritious diets and survival strategies. If you prefer herbal therapies, Nicole Apollon's book on traditional herbal therapy is also recommended. Both books can be found in the store mentioned in our channel description or in any of our video descriptions. If you're watching this on TV, you can find us on your phone or tablet by searching Frugal Solutions and following the links. But let us return to the matter at hand. The legal risks of selling unregistered herbal remedies or providing unlicensed treatment are serious. These conventional tactics operate in a legal gray area, which could result in fines or worse. Even nevertheless, many Amish families believe the danger is worthwhile in order to retain their way of life. And while we're on the subject of traditional behaviors that raise legal eyebrows, consider what some Amish communities are up to in their barns. Let's just say their drink menu is a little more potent than the herbal tea we just discussed. If you believe the Amish are all about peaceful Sunday gatherings and modest living, prepare to be surprised. In some areas, there is a thriving underground culture of handmade wines, ciders, and yes, even moonshine that would make a Prohibition-era bootlegger bow in admiration. To be clear, most Amish forego alcohol entirely. Others, however, see these small batch brews as a continuation of history. Consider Grandpa's old recipe passed down as a family legacy with fruits from the orchard or grains from last year's crop. It's craft brewing at its purest, most authentic, but also the most unlawful. The narrative developed in 2020 when authorities in rural Ohio discovered what may be described as an Amish speakeasy. Several families were detected making and selling homemade moonshine to their neighbors. This was not a major bootlegging enterprise. It was more of a pleasant neighborhood service that happened to be utterly unregulated. Consider it like a farmer's market. Except for prohibited foods, what fascinates me about the clandestine brewing scene is the motivation. These Amish brewers are not looking to make quick money or build an empire. For the majority, it is about preserving family traditions. In some circumstances, these beverages are even utilized during religious events. They're not your ordinary bootleggers, they're more like unintentional criminals. What about the actual brewing process? Impressive. Using traditional processes and homemade equipment, these Amish families produce drinks that some say compete with commercial offerings. However, without regulation or testing, trying one of these drinks is a bit risky. It's like playing Russian roulette with your taste buds, though the Amish's reputation for great craftsmanship typically extends to their moonshine as well. Of course, getting caught has serious implications. Producing and selling alcohol without a license can result in significant fines and perhaps jail time. However, in close-knit Amish communities, where tradition typically takes precedence over modern rules, many are willing to accept the risk. Modern rules are frequently viewed by the Amish as yet another impediment to the preservation of their way of life. What's truly fascinating is how they manage to keep these moonshine businesses under wraps. In societies where everyone knows everyone else's business, concealing a still is no easy task. It's like playing a gigantic game of don't tell the English, which is how the Amish refer to non-Amish people. These installations rely on trust, discretion, and possibly a few well-timed barn doors banging shut whenever an unexpected visitor arrives. Speaking of barn doors, you'd be astonished to learn what else some Amish villages keep hidden. Let's shift from what's going on behind closed doors to another Amish icon, the horse-drawn carriage. Ah, the modest buggy. It's the perfect representation of Amish life. Serene, uncomplicated, and timeless. While we're out here renewing license plates and paying registration fees, Amish buggies are driving down country roads with no documentation required, no engine, there is no registration. It's a brilliant solution that is well suited to their lifestyle. But this is when things get tough. Those lovely buggies are producing some unexpected modern issues. Steel wheels and horse hooves are abrasive on public roadways. They leave a physical imprint over time. Local governments are footing the tab for thousands of dollars in repairs, which is becoming a major headache. Consider hosting a house guest who refuses to use coasters. While they mean no malice, someone is still stuck dealing with the coffee table stains. Buggies are not vehicles for the Amish. Rather, they are instruments that are crucial to their beliefs and way of life. From their perspective, individuals are just living in a way that avoids government monitoring by avoiding the bureaucratic complexity of automobile registration and taxes. But what about municipal governments? It's like a regulatory blind spot that's becoming a significant problem. The costs are piling up, and guess who is footing the bill? That's correct, non-Amish taxpayers. Some counties report spending a significant portion of their road maintenance expenditures solely to repair buggy damage. It's similar to having a neighbor who misses the block party potluck but heaps their plate high. Naturally, this has created some stress. Local officials claim that since the Amish use public roads just like everyone else, they should contribute to their upkeep. A pothole is a pothole, regardless of whether it was caused by a Chevy or a buggy. Some cities have even attempted to implement special permits or taxes for buggies, but that's where things get difficult. The Amish argue that their buggies are an essential aspect of their religious practice. To many, charging taxes or mandating registration feels like an intrusion on their liberties. It's like being the lone vegetarian at a BBQ and being asked to pitch in for the steaks. Why, they question, should they pay for a system they are attempting to escape completely? And while we're on the subject of avoiding modern systems, consider Amish dairy farms. Have you ever wondered how wonderful cheeses and fresh milk products are made? They may make your mouth water, but the FDA isn't too pleased. Imagine receiving a $100,000 fine for a single wheel of cheese. Does this sound crazy? This is the type of issue Amish dairy farmers can face when it comes to raw milk products. While most of us consume milk that has been pasteurized, processed, and packaged to satisfy FDA regulations, many Amish farmers adhere to tradition, which includes raw milk straight from the cow. This is where things get interesting. Federal law makes it illegal to transport raw milk over state lines. It is treated nearly like contraband. Imagine being pulled over and having to explain why your trunk is filled with unpasteurized milk. Officer, is this a science experiment? But leave it to the Amish to find innovative ways to get past the rules. Enter cow share programs. Consider it a timeshare, but instead of staying in a beach condo, you get raw milk from a cow that you theoretically own. Clever, right? Amish farmers have discovered a legal gap large enough to accommodate a milk truck by selling shares of the cow rather than the milk itself. It's similar to having joint custody of a cow, but you don't have to feed or clean up after it. Now, this is when things become really difficult. Raw milk rules vary greatly across the United States, forming a patchwork of regulations more complicated than a handcrafted Amish quilt. Some states allow raw milk sales directly on the farm, while others allow retail sales and some outright prohibit it. For Amish farmers, navigating this legal maze is akin to playing chess on a board, where the laws change depending on where you land. What about the stakes? Surprisingly high. Remember the $100,000 fine? It was not an urban legend. An Amish farmer's artisanal cheese crossed state lines. The absurdity of treating a single wheel of cheese as high-value contraband was not missed on anyone. Makes you wonder if there are cheese-sniffing dogs monitoring the borders, but for the Amish, this is more than just fiercely adhering to tradition. Many people honestly feel that raw milk and dairy products are healthier and more natural than pasteurized alternatives, and they've cultivated a devoted following of non-Amish clients who completely agree. These aficionados are eager to go through whatever legal means to obtain true Amish dairy. Some even join secret milk clubs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Secret societies for raw milk. It's either the most wholesome or the most strange club ever, depending on your perspective. To manage this maze of restrictions, Amish farmers have grown surprisingly astute. They understand exactly which things can be sold where and under what conditions. Some manufacturers even name their products as pet food to avoid certain laws. Let's be honest, Fluffy isn't the one savoring that exquisite cheese. And speaking of breaking the rules, wait until you hear about Amish woodwork shops. If their dairy methods bother the FDA, their workshops would send OSHA inspectors scurrying for cover. These gorgeous handcrafted furniture items may appear faultless from the outside, but how are they made? Let's just say that workplace safety takes on a completely new meaning in these sessions. When you think of Amish woodworking businesses, you usually envision serene, traditional places filled with master artisans, quietly making heirloom quality furniture. What you might not expect is a situation that would make a modern safety inspector go for the nearest citation book, and possibly a stiff drink. Skilled Amish artisans use customized power equipment, frequently without safety protections, to instruct young apprentices in ways that would violate child labor regulations. These stores are where beautiful handmade furniture is created, but they are also where current safety requirements appear to evaporate. It's like a workplace safety rebel's dream, except everyone wears braces and straw hats. Now, let's speak about the tools. Many Amish villages have grown extremely innovative in order to avoid using grid electricity. Consider air-powered tools powered by diesel compressors with modifications that would breach every warranty and safety certification in existence. It's similar to the hot rod culture of woodworking. However, instead of souped-up cars, they're customizing table saws and lathes. The training system in these shops is also unorthodox. Apprenticeship begins at a young age, perhaps as early as their early teens, when children begin working alongside experienced artisans to learn the profession. While this traditional practice has produced generations of expert woodworkers, it is also directly incompatible with child labor rules. Consider it a combination of vocational training and cultural preservation, with a sprinkle of "please don't tell the labor department." Accidents? They happen. However, rather than submitting workers' compensation claims, Amish communities manage such situations locally. If someone is harmed, the community comes around to support them. Think casseroles, helping hands, and maybe even a barn raising or two. It's similar to an informal insurance system minus the monthly premiums. When inspectors come knocking, Amish workshops are periodically shut down for non-compliance. But here's the catch. They frequently reopen with minor alterations. The Amish regard restrictions as impediments to preserving their way of life. The risk of using a saw without the most recent safety safeguards is insignificant in compared to the risk of losing centuries-old crafting traditions. This raises an interesting quandary. These workshops make some of the finest furniture available, crafted by artisans who have been polishing their abilities since they could handle a hammer. But they do it in ways that modern safety standards would consider unsafe. It's like having to choose between conserving an ancient art form and enforcing modern rules. And the Amish have already made their decision. Despite their unusual methods, these workshops succeed. How? through great quality, word of mouth reputations, and occasionally by simply going under the radar. It's like owning a hugely successful restaurant that disregards health codes, but instead of food, they serve perfectly constructed, heirloom quality furniture. From unregistered guns to traditional workshops, the Amish way of life frequently skirts modern regulations. Not only do they break the norms, but they also manage to keep their traditions intact. The Amish have discovered ways to prosper in a world that does not always accord with their ideals, whether through innovative solutions like cow sharing or by adhering to time-honored